Good day and welcome to today's episode of Quest for Health. Today we have a wonderful guest, a friend of mine. We go back, 30 years, Gerardo?
A little more, probably.
A little more. My guest today is Gerardo Quintanar, a truly wonderful man. As I said to him the other day, I've never had a conversation with Gerardo that hasn't ended up with me learning something new, something enlightening, without a wow moment. And what more do we look for in life but wow moments? Gerardo Quintanar is from Mexico. He was at one time a priest and left the priesthood and now has an absolutely beautiful family. And he was, for the last 25 years, pastoral counselor?
22 years.
22 years, the pastoral counselor at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, where he had the opportunity to pursue his mission, pursue his passion, reach an enormous amount of people, help a lot of people, and think about all of the issues that concern us when we have lost our health, when loved ones have lost their health, children in particular, but of course all of the families and all of the support that they need. Gerardo is definitely the man I want by my side when I have questions about illness, acute illness, and end of life. And that is what today's interview is going to be about, because an absolutely essential part of life is the inevitable part of life, which is our passing beyond. And how do we live a life, a healthy life, without thinking about it? So Gerardo, I thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. I wanted to leave the floor open to you because I know that you have these thoughts and these ideas that are an accumulation of a lifetime of experiences.
Well, I would start with going back to the history, to the time in Europe in which the Black Death ravaged the Mediterranean and most of Europe. Mm-hmm. At the end of that, the whole European community was shocked, to say the least, with the experience of death. Not just because of the magnitude, but because it was overwhelming. Just to give you an idea, in Montpellier, in the south of France, there was a Dominican priory. At the beginning of the plague, there were 135 friars living there. At the end of the plague, there were only 4 left.
Terrifying.
So basically, the whole society lost his control of dying. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting that there was a council in that decided to address the issue, and they asked somebody, a theologian, to write a little booklet called Ars Moriendi, the art of dying. Mm-hmm. And then this booklet is 5 little chapters written in a very vernacular, simple Latin, so that everybody can read it. And it was a way to coach people how to prepare to die. So imagine, there was, at that moment, is the beginning of the people thinking that when you die, your soul go directly to confront your personal judgment with God. But there were no priests, because the plague affected particularly the priests that were attending the dying. So now you have these Christians confronted to their own judgment without a priest to confess and prepare to go to heaven. So the interesting thing of this booklet, it says, if you are dying, don't be afraid, because God loves you. So trust in God, and don't allow the devil to put bad thinking in your head. This was a very influential book in the 15th, 16th centuries, to humanize again the dying process, to take that horrific experience of going into the chaos and you don't have control. I think today, in the 21st century, we are living similar circumstances. We lost the cultural capacity to prepare ourselves to die. Most of the people,
wise analogy. Yes.
yeah, most of the people today face death in loneliness. Most of them,
True.
and they face death in a society who doesn't understand death as part of the human life. Death is a destruction. It's a loss, a completely loss. And I think if you see in the way the people understand the process of dying, they say he was beaten by cancer. He lost his fight to cancer, or he lost whatever. But it's always in the context of that death is not natural.
It's a failure.
It's a failure.
Yeah.
It's a failure. When death, at the bottom line, is the accomplishment of a life. Working at CHIO, I remember one day I was working with this family, and after I blessed the kid, and we know that it's going to die. Both parents turned to me and says, Gerardo, can you help us make this day the best day of our lives? That is what is the beauty of that. Yes, we couldn't control the illness of that little baby, but we could control how we want to leave it. He's dead. And that's very interesting. When I was working with grieving parents, moved them from the sense of loss to the sense of having achieved an ancestry. Your child is now your ancestor. Your child is now somebody now that you can stand up to see life in a completely different way.
What an incredible thought. Your child is your ancestor.
Yeah. Yeah, we always think an ancestor of all these
Old people.
grandparents, grandparents. Mm-hmm. But every person, when he dies, becomes an ancestor and builds something for humanity. Because life is not about the future. Life is about the present, built in the past. Let me tell you a story. When Moses was negotiating with God in the Sinai mountain, going up to the mountain to talk to him and learn what the God's wishes were for the people of Israel, one day he asked God, can I see your face? And God says, nope, you cannot see my face. Mm-hmm. But you can see my akura. That is the Hebrew word that God says to Moses, my akura. What is akura? It's the butt.
The what?
Butt. Your butt.
Okay.
You're behind. What God was telling Moses is you cannot understand me watching my face, but you can understand me watching the past. And that is the only way that we can understand ourselves as well. So the sense of future is the future do not exist. What exists is today. So the challenge for me is what am I going to do today in what I am experimenting. And then the resources for me to understand my moment is to look at the past. And not just my past, but the past. Going back to the big explosion of the universe.
The Big Bang.
Big Bang. Big Bang. Working with a kid with muscular dystrophy, in the last 6 months of his life, he was very smart. So I challenged him to go back to his past and understand who he was. And I remember a few days before he died, he says, you know, Gerardo, I am stardust. A stardust with a name. Okay? So we live in an universe in which everything changes. And that's what we are mortal.
But we are so taken.
But
Right.
The universe has configured us into something special, unique.
Yes.
And that is when we diet, we become ancestors. Because we leave behind the heritage of what we have experimented. And it's very interesting. You know that the word health means, in English, means whole. Health is to be whole, to be complete.
Okay.
That is interesting thing of health. So health is not related to illness. Because you can be quite ill, but being whole. And so preserving that integrity until the moment you die is what is the key importance of the art of dying well today. And we are not doing this. We are not preserving this integrity.
Our focus is
Our
completely
focus
different places.
is in keeping living as much as we can. And in doing so, we torture ourselves because we got over the threshold of what is really human. And we start to become dependent on machines, depending on drugs, depending on a system to try to prolong every day more than we can live.
So that reminds me of something that I read many years ago in Chinese medicine, where they say that it's the only purpose of, because the Chinese are known for trying to extend their lives, but the only reason for trying to extend your life is so that your spirit can grow and evolve as much as possible.
And that's one of the things. So the culture in which you belong give you let's say, a plan, a life plan to diet.
Yeah.
A life plan to diet. But what is happening in North America is we don't really have a culture. We have a way of life and myths. And we are dominated by media. We are dominated by... That is entertainment in North America.
Yeah.
You open any TV program, and what do you find there? Dead. And most of it, an ugly dead, violent dead. So North America doesn't have a culture of dying.
No.
North America perceives death as an event for entertainment because it's shocking. So when you are living here, then you have to find how I can create my own personal path to diet well. And that is very interesting that now we, in Ontario, in Canada, we have ways of providing a control to the system. Saying, no, I don't want to do that to me. If I am in those circumstances, I don't want you to put into a machine. I don't want to put me into more suffering. But very few Canadians had advanced directives. So we have the means, the tools to tell the system, the medical system, don't torture me. But very few have the courage to go and do it and be prepared. And so what happens is you get into a point and you are no more capable of thinking, of defending, of saying what you want, and then you're left to your spouse or to your children the burden of making decisions on your behalf. And that is what is very difficult. That's what is very difficult. That's what we have so many nursing homes in which the people is trying to diet and they get sick with a pneumonia and 911. Go to the hospital, 3 months into machines, repack a little bit, and back to your room. Why 911? Because there is no advance directives. And one of the things why there is no advance directives is, one of the things is, when we think about dying, there is a primeval fear that is instinctive, which is the fear of detachment. Attachment is so important for little babies and toddlers because it's the way that the instinct for survival guide them to be close to a loving adult.
Yes.
So this is it. But its attachment could be troublesome because many kids, they didn't have enough attachment with their parents because of circumstances. It was not the bad will of the parents. So the parents needed to go back to work, so they have to drop the kid in a daycare because they need to survive. But so attachment could be a big issue for many. And it's because it's at a primal level that you don't verbalize it. You just feel it. And so talking about dying, yourself or somebody you love, if there are attachment issues, it's very hard. Complex grief is always related to attachment issues.
And what about the fear of the unknown?
Yeah. And that too, like...
Because there could be another attachment.
Another attachment too.
Which we don't know about.
And again, so let's say 60 or 80 years ago in Quebec or in Eastern Ontario, you have very religious community with a system of beliefs very precise, with rituals very precise. So you know that when you are going to die, the priest will come and give you the last rites, prepare you to go to encounter your Creator, and then you will be buried beside the church. So that was perfectly thing. Today, 21st century, attendance to church is only for the elderly most of the time. I remember in Chio asking the parents, do you belong to a denomination? And they will look to each other and they will say, not really. I think my grandma was Anglican. Oh. So in working with today's parents in the context of Chio, I couldn't use a religious framework because there was none. Mm-hmm. And that is not just with Chio or that generation. I think it's a society issue today. That there is no solidity in a set of beliefs that help you, prepare you to die with a sense of comfort and hope. And again, there is not either a philosophical component.
What do you mean by that?
That society do not offer to us solid philosophical information on dying. So like, let me quote Viktor Frank. Viktor Frank says that what is important for a human being is to find meaning.
Yes.
That could you find meaning in your dying?
Good question.
You could, but you need to have a really, really, really deep reflection on who you are.
Not fear-based.
And no fear-based. Mm-hmm. Because again, your dying is your culmination of your life.
And it's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
You can't cheat it.
Even
like
if you don't believe
taxes,
in anything,
right?
your culmination of your life is your death. That is when you close the chapter. But you have a book. You have a book. You left behind a book.
Yes.
That is your life. That is your legacy. And that I think is important to close the page.
And you may not leave behind a book for any specific person, but we are part of a universe.
Yeah.
So we all have an impact on that universe.
Oh yeah. You can live. I think one interesting thing I learned from First Nations, from indigenous people, is when they walk in the woods. It's a journey. It's a journey, and they let themselves be connected with the trees, with the animals, with the wind, with the shadows and the sun. Life is like that. Uh-huh. You don't walk alone. No. You walk with the world. Even if you don't have a very strong social group, even if you don't have excellent good friends, you have the universe.
You do. Now I want to ask you something because of your experience at CHIO. We all see stories about incredibly so-called brave children who are terminally ill and dying and comforting their parents. Is that the majority of children, or is that truly an exception? In your experience?
In my experience, it's hard to tell because most of the stories that you see in the newspaper come from oncology patients. Mm-hmm. And they reflect mostly what is the oncology world. Again, remember the thing I was telling you about fighting the enemy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I remember this mom telling to his child, you have a tumor in you, but it's not your enemy, it's you. That was the way your body was programmed. We will see if we can control that growth, but don't get scared of your growth, this is you. And it's amazing how she transformed the fight into a self-awareness. That something is happening to me is not my enemy. And that I think it happens. So it all depends on who is influencing you, who is supporting you, how they are interpreting what is happening to you. But again, you see, society doesn't want to experience that, so you keep fighting. And unfortunately, today medicine, with the science, you can do things, I would not say miracles. You can do things that you should not do. Not because you could, you have to do it.
Because it drags people into a state that is not health, that is not truly life.
Oh no.
How would you define life as opposed to death?
Life is to be.
To be?
To be.
To learn? To grow?
Learn, to connect, to interact, to understand yourself, and to understand the purpose of your life. That is life.
And when you no longer
when
can,
you are not able to do that,
don't give it over to other people to do it for you.
Yeah, not let a machine keep being you.
Well, it looks like the technology for replacing human beings in so many spheres is already there. So if we have that sacredness of being a human being distinct from a machine, why would we want the machine to take us over?
To take it over. Mm-hmm. And remember, a machine, technology, is something that's a human creation.
Yes.
And we humans sometimes, with what thing that we created, we don't do good things.
We don't. We certainly don't do it as well as that loving intelligence that created us.
Yeah.
In all of our flaws, but really as such a perfect system that fits so well into the universe.
Yeah, it gives us a sense when we created machines, when we created this technology, that we are powerful.
Mm-hmm. So in essence, because we're going to be wrapping up shortly, the message for health, from being aware of the things you've mentioned, is it to focus more on what death represents and not be sidetracked by things that have nothing to do with life, accumulation of stuff and
I think
partying?
I think you have to embrace that. Yes. You have to embrace that as young as you can. Yeah. As young as you can, to understand that you are mortal, that you belong to a mortal race. And then embracing your death, then you look at your past to gain energy to do the next step. Right. That is what is life all about, but you have to accept that mortality. And so every day of your life is a page in your book. So try to write
that is going
the
to be read
best
by
book.
The universe. Yes. You know that saying about how learn as if you were to live forever and live as if you were to die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is what it's all about.
Yeah. So here you are with everything that you've learned and that you've spoken to people in so many cultures, in all of the languages, and you find that same pattern in everybody.
Yeah, I think the fact that media has equalized everything. It's pervasive in all cultures.
Yeah.
And that is the challenge. So it's not just because you are North American or you are coming from the Southeast Asia or you're coming from Central Africa. You get exposed to the same kind of one of human creation, which is media. It's a substitute for culture today.
And you know what? Just as the media has influenced us, we can influence the media by bringing this wisdom.
But bringing this question and using media as a source of dialogue and understanding.
Well, you have just spoken to the media here.
I will.
And your words of wisdom are recorded for eternity, Gerardo. And they are in my soul for eternity, because you have been a very important influence in my life. And I'll be eternally grateful to you for that.
Thank you, Kathy.
And I know many people are too. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Thank you. And that wraps up, much too soon, much too quickly, our interview that could have gone on for much, much longer. So perhaps one of these days we'll find an opportunity to bring Gerardo back to the world. And thank you, and see you with the next episode.